Hello and welcome back to the EU SCC Championships elimination stage. We have 2 sets left to go for the remainder of our weekend to decide which 2 EU teams are going to be joining some of the SPL talent, eventually joining some of the NA SCC talent as well at those group stages. And the good news is we'll get to see one of those from this set here, Mambo and the Ravens. Our second set of the day. I got Trelly joining me over on the desk to make sure to try and give me a hand here, because this is going to be a big matchup, Trelly. This is the #1 and #2 EU seed. And I know that we tried to say, okay, we gotta push seeding aside coming into this one, but it's kind of shown that these two are the clear-cut top teams at the moment.
Yeah, I would say so. Hex Mambo and Highland Ravens have both been extremely dominant in their own circuit, and especially dominant in this tournament. So I know we said put the seeding away, but these are the 2 top dogs right here.
Yeah, we definitely got to talk about these 2 teams, and we will do so in just a moment. We can take a look at the bracket, though, for what we'll call here Group C, which is the amalgamation of the winners of Group A and Group B now thrown together. With our last match, the Niflheim Works tournament life and their Season 9 competitive life is done with. The RE Scorpions will be awaiting the loser of this match for one final chance qualifier to see who will be the second team to join up to the SWC group stage, which will figure out who the first one is with this set. Hex Mambo and Highland Ravens, #1 and 2 seed respectively in the EU SCC from Phase 3 coming into this event. And now your #1 and 2 seed to face off for that first qualification one out there. And these 2 teams, man, there's a lot of history just between the players on these squads, the competitive careers that some of them have had. You look over on the Ravens, you have players like Adapting. You've got VaporishCoast, who's been around the scene for a long time. But you look over at Hex Mambo, and pretty much everybody but their hunter has had some form of SPL tenure out there. Most recently to the SPL, Zyrhoes in the mid lane, and Dzoni in the jungle, who we'll kind of dial in on, because he's got a little bit more of an eclectic style of god pool in that jungle compared to other junglers out there. Things like the Ratatosker sometimes pop out, but I think of things like the Mercury, the Loki, stuff that nobody else is really playing in this scene.
Yeah, and it's always exciting to watch. I think Dzoni, those different style of god picks and also different way of building said picks is always interesting. You may look at that rat play and think he was building full damage, but no, he was going Thistle, or the Thick Bark Acorn with like Glad Shield and Breastplate. He was going like a hybrid tank rat and still doing incredible damage. So being able to pivot and make sort of adaptations like that is always deadly, because you're expecting a certain style of play and you get something else. Dzoni has always been, as you said, you know, things like the Loki, things like the Mercury, other picks that no one else at the time was playing, and that's always annoying because you're used to playing a certain way, and then you're like, wait, there's a Loki behind me, wait, I could be getting, you know, rat ulted, and I can't just 1v1 him because he's tanky. Those sort of things really do add up and throw you off your game, and I want to dial in also on the picks and bans. You can't ban out Dzoni because his god pool is so diverse. If you're targeting anyone on Hex Mambo, it's definitely not the jungle.
Dzoni is definitely not the ideal one to throw some bans towards. You might throw a stray, top jungle ban or 2 over that direction, but other than that, maybe focus your sights elsewhere for that kind of squad. And I think the same thing can be said of Adapting over on the opposite end here for the Highland Ravens. His god pool, for how long this guy has been in the scene, there are definitely a couple of picks I don't want to ever give over to Adapting. One of them is, well, Thor. Probably don't want to ever give him Thor, just because he's been playing it since the literal existence of Smite and him jumping in to the Smite scene. Ratatosker probably up there as well for picks. I don't want to hand over to him kind of a Thor light in that regard, or secondary Thor. He's just been playing these gods so well for such a long period of time. And it's allowed his team to allow him to either be that hard carry or be that facilitator jungler.
Yeah, and I think what you said, the Thor, I doubt it gets through in this situation because Adapting does look so explosive on it almost always. But he knows exactly when to fight too. Adapting, in my mind, is not one of those junglers that's just going to get absolutely crazy early on. He knows exactly when his power spikes are. He knows when he wants to take 1v1s in the jungle, when to hide around a corner and see if the enemy jungler is going to walk up, or more specifically, when to just throw it up in mid lane and try and set up for his team with like a Thor dunk in that situation. So I think both of these junglers extremely talented and have been around the scene for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if this set is made or break. I don't know how else to say it.
Made or broke?
Make or broke around these junglers' playstyles.
Yeah, well, let's see what these junglers do pick up there, because along with the Thor, the Hunbats, and the Ratatosker are both within the wheelhouse of these 2 players. We'll see if any of those types of picks do make it through. So we jump into the picks and bans for game #1 between Hex Mambo and Highland Ravens, your #1 and #2 seed from the EU SCC. And for this matchup right now, only one of those can make it to the SWC group stage. This best of 3 will determine who's the first one to join the ranks with the SPL to see who's going to be battling for those last 4 spots to the Smite World Championships. That'll happen the week before January, but it's all got to start here for one of these 2 teams that this Bans go through. Thor, not going to be given over to the Highland Ravens, neither is the set, which is something that we've been seeing Angry kind of pick up a little bit more often over into that mid-roll. Angry, typically the more traditional mage style of player, Trelly, but this set has really been working out for him over there in mid.
Yeah, certainly has. I actually really like what the Ravens are doing here with their bans. Something that I've noticed, and it seems like something they've noticed, is Mambo as a whole look a lot cleaner when Deathwalker is on one of those characters he can free farm with. Amaterasu and Tier, 2 picks that you're not camping. If you see Deathwalker on Ama or Tier, you're probably not ganking that lane, so trying to focus that out, probably a smart call. Whereas Hex Mambo, they're happy with limiting a bit of the assassin play. Of course, Thor, that adapting loves, but more specifically Angry loves that set. And then the Hades. But the Ishtar first pick, that makes a ton of sense to me. We've seen a lot of Ishtar played in this tournament so far. And that is pretty scary. You're seeing the double Guardian lock in immediately from the Ravens.
And Fafnir isn't typically, you know, the most popular of picks to come out from some of these players. You know, it's kind of one that's been a little bit more of a flavor during this event, but seems to be working pretty well for teams. Couple that with Cthulhu, you've already got the front line. But Joe, you remember the old saying about Trixtank Sobek?
I know the saying.
What's the saying
when
then,
Trixtank's on the croc, me and J-Mac are buying the stock because they're looking clean. And I think giving Zyrhoes Chronos as well, I hate to say it, but I think Hex Mambo got exactly what they wanted. Yeah,
they got a pretty powerful top 3 alongside that Ishtar. Fafnir, Cthulhu, and Cupid. So 2 gods with a C. I was going to say, man, they got the triple C there, but it's not. It's a Fafnir. That's not that close to a C, at least there. But now we jump in to the second wave of bans out there. So you have your duo lane for the Highland Ravens with the Cupid Fafnir going up against Sobek Ishtar, we're going to assume, unless Deathwalker throws us for a loop and takes the Sobek for himself, which would make for probably the second or maybe most boring solo lane that you could imagine, like Sobek Cthulhu. I can only think like Sobek Xing might be the only thing that might be like more boring of a lane.
Capri Ganesh.
Okay, but when are we ever going to see Kepper?
I'm just saying, if you're talking about the most boring lane,
all right, you got me at that. That would be a very boring solo to watch.
That's
very
where my mind goes.
Unlikely to see that one.
Also true.
As well as we're not going to see 3 assassins. I almost said 4 because Morrigan would likely transform into a lot of these assassins there. But Huang picked up for the Highland Ravens. Now where will Hex Mambo go? It seems that Xing is the call over for Deathwalker, maybe for Hex Mambo.
Yeah, that is going to be the call, as well as the Dodgy Hover, a pick that you don't expect to get this far through. But remember, the one game that we saw Hex Mambo lose in this circuit, or the one single game, not the set, was when Johnny was on Dodgy. I don't think it was exactly his fault. I think it was just a lot of pressure around the map that didn't quite work out. So maybe it was something the Ravens weren't too worried about, as well as that Xing low early pressure. And that seems to be the call. The Lancelot, as well as the double Guardian, does mean that the Ravens are going to have a ton of that early pressure. That's what they're looking towards. They don't want to wait late game when there's a Chronos on field. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And when we look over at the side for this Dodgy for Hex Mambo, you've got 2 other gods that are really good at burning beads. Yep. Sobek towards the carries. If you get a pluck, you're going to want to beat that. Xing if he walks into the backline and ults. If you don't have CC immunity, you're going to want that. So maybe Johnny can have a better chance on this Dodgy. The #1 and #2 seed, Mambo and Ravens, duke it out in game #1.
That's right, and it's exciting to watch this one. I'm going to piggyback. Oh, it's Goran Mifflin, by the way. I'm going to piggyback on...
Okay.
What?
What am I, an
There's
afterthought?
4 people here.
I
wonder
liver.
who it is.
It could have been Dave. They don't know.
He's not here.
Could have been Hindu.
You know what? It could have been Hindu. I'm sure he's still sad after England lost yesterday, though. So. Yeah, no, it's Goran Smith. And, of course, it's Doug hanging out with us here. And a lot of fun to be had for this set because top 2 seeds, maybe just a treat in general watching them go against each other. Also have to throw Johnny under the bus the same way that Trelly did on the desk, which is to say the one game that Hex Mambo has lost so far this weekend was with the Dodgy. 3 losses, 3 games total. Just hasn't been finding a lot of success. Do you think that this is an environment that the Dodgy can find helpful and beneficial?
I'm trying to think of the least controversial way for me to state this. Dodgy is very good, and I don't think there's a single composition that Daji is not very good with. So the win rate of Daji, I don't think has anything to do with, you know,
With Daji.
with herself.
Yeah,
You know, it
that's
has
what
been
Charlie said on the dust too. So
been a bit of a pilot error, I would say. But this is a composition that does facilitate Daji. I know I said she works with every single one of them, but that's not to say that there aren't certain things that you can make it a bit easier for her to perform
works
with.
better.
A little bit of AoE CC from Deathwalker means that beads will be on cooldown, so Palau will likely find some pretty decent targets throughout this game. Trixtank as well, a consistent beads burner with that pluck, means that Dzoni should have a pretty easy time. I'm surprised to see the Highland Ravens actually not just penta bead stack. I would be pretty concerned about the massive CC focus of this Hex Mambo draft. Instead, Shell for iSilenced. I suppose once he ticks over to level 5, not super concerned about CC too much with that Draconic transformation. And Kana with the teleport. Soul Laner's going to need that regardless, but Cthulhu in a similar position to Fafnir in that you'll be okay in a Descent into Madness world, but how often is that going to be available if Deathwalker's allowed to play aggressive?
The only thing I want to add on to that
Yep.
is that Zyrhoes has been, like, surprisingly, maybe surprisingly isn't even the right term. He's just been adept at pulling beads on this Chronos, and something that I maybe wouldn't be too shocked to find out he was capable of doing. Johnny's going to split off, get mid camps on the right-hand side. Highland Ravens going to get the left mid camps. The Chronos has been a kind treat for Hex Mambo. And even with a little bit of a stressful game, too, yesterday, they've maintained the 100% win rate. I believe Zyrhoes is the only one playing it, and has yet to lose a game while on this pick so far.
The only one playing it in the SCC. We actually seen
right
him a bit recently in the SBL. Some of the buffs to Chronos giving him such strong scaling in that late game when he already had incredible scaling in the late game as well. And the itemization changes.
What if we just gave you more power, more attack speed? That's just good.
Yeah, wouldn't that be dope? And you already have like a lot of that. Has made Chronos a bit of a menace in the late game. And as I was saying, the Sands of Time change, now having a little bit of additional damage on minions, means that his lackluster clear is slightly less lackluster.
There's a pluck, but has nothing really else going for it. I mean, a couple of autos thrown into coast, and that's about all there is over in the left-hand lane. Purple buff invade from Hex Mambo, looking for CC. Nice hammer from Silence, but the pluck should be coming up or back up for Trixtank. Minions are going to be there. Kind of blocks the path. But a thwarted invade for now. Dzoni, left side of the map.
Oh, they got it.
And they're going to be able to walk in and secure this one, no problem, especially with the clear. Silence has to play carefully. You step forward into this, you get plucked with Dzoni over there, you're dead. So goes back under tower. Purple buff gets invaded, stolen. Dzoni gets to back to base with a little extra golden pocket.
Yeah, the only way iSilenced defends that purple buff is if he's willing to die for it. And supports are the homies, but I'm not dying for a purple buff, even if it is VaporishCoast in my lane. So I suppose Coast can kick rocks this time. Hog available for the next rotation of purple, if Hex Mambo elect to move in towards it again. Adapting spends his time farming throughout that entire small skirmish on the left, so a slight level advantage for the Lancelot on map. Gives access over to that ultimate. Maybe a rotation towards duo with Echrome already taking the 5, though. Not as easy as it would have been previously. Instead, simple answer, simple situation. There's a Chronos on the team. I want to see ganks on Chronos. I want to see Zyrhoes put under pressure. We haven't seen it yet this tournament. Even in the one loss for Hex Mambo, Zyrhoes was essentially just free farming throughout the entirety of the game. Someone needs to prevent that. And it's not even a value trade if you allow Angry to free farm as long as Zyrhoes is doing it, because Zyrhoes scales harder.
Yeah.
So let's get some people active in the mid lane. More onus on Highland Ravens to get active mid than it is for Hex Mambo.
I was going to say, Hex Mambo, you got a Chronos, he's free farming right now. You can relax for a little while.
Yeah, don't come take my farm.
Maybe you can't relax over here adapting. Here's the call for a gank, but goes over towards right. You get the ultimate from Deathwalker, so the CC immunity's gone. Ultimate from Kana, gonna match. Dzoni secures the blue buff before adapting, and Kana can get there. Good call from the jungler. Get your solo laner out and get the buff, strip away the experience, and kind of waste the time of the Ravens.
Yeah, Dzoni actually a bit dangerous in how he elects to move in for that buff. Not overly concerned about his life. Trickster Spirit onto the blue buff just to close gap. Does mean he wouldn't have had it to escape over wall, could have jumped onto Deathwalker, jumped to the lane. But because he still had access to Palau, probably not concerned about any further initiation from the Highland Ravens. Cxnnahh, Descend to Madness now down. And Squishy in first slot. That's Pythag's piece on the Cthulhu. I wouldn't be surprised if Dzoni swings back through the solo.
Yeah, no, like you said, no beads, no ult. Could be pretty, at least appetizing kill if they can try and grab it. Angry much harder. Not only the beads, but just the CC immunity that exists in a Huang. Makes it kind of hard for G to show up in mid and be as helpful overall. So we'll watch Dzoni. Again, his career with great interest, where he ends up going with this one. I am really wondering, though, and this is something that maybe I'm just blanking, maybe I haven't been on as many Ravens sets as I would think, but I don't know if I've seen Adapting play a lot of Lancelot. Like, even over the last few weeks of play that Adapting has been part of, I mean, granted, some of that's months ago, but there was a lot of Rat, a lot of Thor.
Yep.
Honestly, after that, it's just a smattering of other gods.
Yeah, if you want to go further back, Nemesis is there, Daji was around, but Lancelot, certainly not one of his standards. Adapting, good stun, forces the Grand Joust. That should be an escape call for the Ravens.
Yeah, it's a disengage there. Angry plucked, maintains the beads. There's at least the dash, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be any other follow-up. Forcing ults, making them feel uncomfortable on the side of the Ravens. Trying to set up Dzoni is what this feels like, right? Try to get some of those beads, get that CC immunity out there, just like that. Good beads from Angry, but good beads burn from Trixtank. Maybe opening up a target for the jungler.
You know, the nature of the CC of Hex Mambo's composition might make it such that Huang's beads are the least valuable to burn.
Yes.
It is slow CC from Deathwalker, slow CC from Dzoni, disjointed CC from Zyrhoes. Celestial Flight, Dueling Dragons, both pretty strong tools to do with every single bit of that. The only one who's really going to make use of burnt beads on Angry is Trixtank, because that's the fastest CC you've got. Connect the pluck, you're going to the air regardless. So, maybe Trixtank has to rotate back through, otherwise Angry has just got really strong options to deal with every bit of crowd control from Hex Mambo otherwise.
I admire the try to steal the mid camps. Trix is nothing if not aggressive. It's actually surprising. I mean, there are few teams in Europe, honestly, that can slow Hex Mambo down. It's nice to see that the Ravens have maintained that capability. Granted, when you look at the names on the board, of course, this is going to be one of the more premier matchups in my mind of Europe in general. And it makes sense that this would essentially be the finals of this bracket. Winner goes to SWC group stages. So there's a lot of pressure on them. Hex Mambo, though, scaling with time, baby. The longer this game goes, the better Zyrhoes is going to look. Yesterday, he was double stacking. It looks like he's going to start that same route. So I honestly would not be surprised if they're just relaxing for a little while anyway.
But both teams have got pretty decent strengths in the late game. Highland Ravens a bit more team fight focused. It's not as if any one of their individual picks is, yeah, that's our win condition, we got it. Yeah, our Chronos is now 30 minutes in, but it's, all right, Cthulhu in the late game, team fight looking kind of nice. Fafnir is coerced, gets a little bit more value as time goes on as well. And then Adapting, if he decides to go for a full damage build, and it's Adapting, so he likely will, has an okay matchup into Chronos. The burst from Lancelot is very fast. The double dash, the second ability, means that rewind from Zyrhoes could lose a bit of efficacy as the game goes on. I'm not certain which one of these compositions I would more heavily favor in the late game. I'm leaning Hex Mambo, but I'm thinking that might be the first seed bias that's in my brain as well.
For sure.
But it is just such a CC-heavy draft with great damage. I like them both a lot. We'll have to see.
Ult's traded out on left lane, and nothing big comes of it. Both maintain their beats. It's a small level lead right now for Echrome over Coast. I believe that's true for a lot of Hex Mambo right now. It's a very slow roll, but they've almost amassed 1,000 gold without a first blood, without many invades. And we're seeing where maybe some of the damage combo is going to lie. Pluck from the Sobek into a Chronos. For right now, Silence is maybe a little upset from it. Cxnnahh maybe a little more upset. Thrown back by Deathwalker. Finally uses the ult. Gets that immunity. He's going to be able to clear the way pretty easily here. And unfortunately for Dzoni, that ends all of his time over in right lane for at least the moment.
Yeah, again, I said it earlier. I'll say it again. I want to see Dzoni loop back around, adapting. Here's this happening. Does not secure his own camp there. Stolen away by Dzoni, now taking over to level 10 to match his contemporary Greatest Scorpion. That belongs to Hex Mambo as well. And this is a Mambo pace that is reminiscent of what we've seen from the Camelot Kings in the past. Not really trying to force fights, but they're still grouping up and checking the Ravens, making sure that they're on time for each one of their own personal objectives. And so far, the Ravens have not. Greater Scorpions taken. Totem Akus, for the most part, belong to Hex Mambo as well. Scepters have been going to Mambo. And they've accumulated this lead through these small wins on map that are really starting to stack up as time goes on. 11 minutes in, no fighting, still about 1,000 up.
Sometimes it's just, I mean, little things like that, right? Invades are going to be nice. Getting the Interceptor, nice. But it's been mid-camp control, this neutral farm that has gone their favor. We'll see if they can keep up that pace or maybe even pick it up a little more. You know, one of the things Trelly liked to joke about and that we've kind of mentioned over the last couple of days is the race to see if Hex Mambo can hit their farm game to the max where they're getting level 20 by 20 minutes in.
Someone's going to pick up that Scepter, surely.
You have to imagine.
Like, someone wants that.
Like Trixtank is right there.
Okay, did he just realize, maybe?
So
oh, no, he's maximizing the amount of time it's going to be on him. That's what he's doing. This guy's a genius.
I do like the idea that he walked up and he's like, yo, can we get a kill? Can we get a kill? And
yeah,
like Echrome's sitting there like,
maybe if you get
hey,
the
did you
Scepter.
pick up your Scepter? And he goes, huh? Turns to the right. There it is. But no, I'm inclined to agree with you. Maximizing it. Gonna have some extra damage that he can dish out over here. Dueling Dragons.
Good pull.
Thrown at 0-0s, uses the rewind immediately. Puts him in an interesting spot. Hammer from Silenced. Connects. And that's going to end right then and there. Damage on the right, though, is good. Kana's getting low. Palau should be enough. The shot finds first blood for Dzoni. And that's going to be a successful gank on the solo lane.
I've been begging for Dzoni to head over to solo. I didn't think it'd be a gank while Descent into Madness was still up, considering how often Deathwalker had been able to force it off. But kill him through it, I suppose, is the strategy here for Dzoni. And looks clean for him. Trixtank getting aggressive in mid, posturing forward, not so concerned with the damage output from Angry. Pluck connects, and a nice shot.
Forces the beats one more time, Silenced. Well, I thought was going to be in a little bit of trouble. Dzoni was looking hungry, but he's going to go ahead and fall back. All of a sudden, Mifflin, you start factoring in the steals, the farm, and now the first blood, and you're looking at 2,000 gold. Sitting on the side of Hex Mambo. 13 minutes in, 2,000 still feels pretty substantial at this point, spread across everybody. Yeah, the experience probably mattering a little more, right? That little level difference, pretty much for every member, is going to make a big deal. Maybe most of all over here. Coast has been having a great weekend. Echrome, I gave a little bit of trouble yesterday. Still has looked fantastic.
Wait, why were you bullying Echrome, man?
There were just games where, admittedly, it just kind of felt like Echrome just existed in them. Wasn't necessarily really like getting it done. Has not been a detriment.
Nobody's immune to the quiet games.
But yeah, it was just like it was just a silent, more quiet game. I think there was a Heimdallr game the other day as well when they lost. That just kind of didn't sit right considering the Echrome Heimdallr that I was used to. And I think that one might have been more meta than it was that individual game. Adapting Pluck back. There's going to be the slow immediate jump in from Dzoni. They don't get a lot of burn onto adapting. They're going to turn and run. Paolau's not back up yet. Maybe playing it patient.
Yeah, Highland Ravens haven't really gotten active on the map anywhere. It's been a lot of reactive play, and even then, the reaction is, they're here, let's get out. Not, they're here, let's defend our stuff. And Hex Mambo's lead continues to extend in a pace of game like this. Maybe the Highland Ravens are hyper confident in their ability to take these fights late game, and if that's the case, if that is legitimately your own personal analysis of how you want to play this game, the Highland Ravens have done a good job of mitigating loss throughout the early. But we've evaluated the late game ad nauseum, and it might be too late now to talk about the early, but when you look at these drafts, everywhere but solo lane, I really like the fight for Highland Ravens. Seems they've decided enough is enough. Pyromancer pulled out, but Johnny's here.
He's gonna go in. Damage onto Adapting is the focus. Up onto the Powwow chains. Go out, looks for the pull. Not gonna be able to get it. Hex Mambo take the Pyromancer in the meantime and get out with their lives. Force the Ravens to fall back. And now, just focusing around on the mid camps. What a play. Johnny jumping in at the right time.
Yeah, Johnny just walks up, angry, immediately dueling dragons. And Johnny says, while I'm 1,000 cutting, that simply will not be working against me. Johnny heads up into the powwow, and Adapting says, while I'm on my horse, that simply will not be working against me, and walks himself out of there. But fortunately, Johnny had done so much, taken so many of those cooldowns away from Highland Ravens. The Pyromancer, a simple steal for Hex Mambo, and that is a real tough situation to find yourself in. Silenced, leave himself out of there. Should be the end of that aggression. The first time the Highland Ravens choose to do something on the map, Hex Mambo take it away from him. That is a tough spot. Like Pavlov's dog, I just wouldn't do it again, you know?
That's just a sad moment, right? When you finally feel prepared, and honestly, maybe to what you were highlighting, which is that feels like they could have maybe done it a little earlier. Could have tried to start it as fast as possible instead waiting for this kind of mid-game portion, late mid-game, or / early late. As we get to the 16-minute mark, maybe leaving just enough of a window to allow Hex Mambo to be able to contend such a fight. There's going to be a Trebuchet now. Spawned on left. We'll see if they end up using it here for Hex Mambo. But with first blood, an objective steal, a little bit of bullying just for the hell of it, it seems. Some good news for Hex Mambo. I have to give credit to Silenced right now, though. He has been getting in Zyrhoes' face and slapping him with a hammer every chance he gets. It doesn't amount to anything every single time, but he keeps doing it. And I'm loving to watch it. Coast almost soloed out in an instant by Echrome. He heard me talking. He wanted to shut down that conversation fast. What a quick play by the Hunter for the Mambo.
I don't know if Coast is just incredibly brave or if he knows his numbers perfectly, but I would have panic beats there or hit an Aegis or something. Gold Fury to Hex Mambo. The Highland Ravens not able to defend this one. Trixtank on the hunt. He wants Adapting, so does Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny teleports in, gets the autos, and that's all you need to put a second one on the board. They force the ult. They coin flip it, but they get the Fury. And Hex Mambo pull ahead. I mean, Mifflin, we were talking 2,000 gold after first blood. Now pushing 4,500. Just after a second kill. Neutral objectives all going their way. Rewind used in mid. Zyrhoes rooted down. Might have to play this carefully. Hasn't had to use the beads just yet. Yeah, so he's going to be fine. Hex Mambo, honestly, much like Zyrhoes, have to be feeling fine here.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Zyrhoes. He's full stacked both Thoth and Warlocks now, so he's actually very tanky. Has a little bit of lifesteal and build thanks to that Polynomicon, and because of some of the buffs we've seen most recently to the stacking items, penetration is there as well. And because of the buffs to his second ability, has tons of power whenever he wants it, which will benefit that Polynomicon. 35% power increase whenever you channel it properly. And you've got healing in kit as well. I'm thinking Zyrhoes is probably just A-okay going forward. He hasn't even really needed to rewind. I would argue the last couple of rewinds were just because he could. I don't think I've seen him use it in an actual
I gotta
sticky
use
situation.
this while I can still channel it.
Yeah, might as well. In the late game, it's just going to be a DPS loss. It's not worthwhile. In the early game, I look cool.
It's a nice reset. I think we saw one yesterday. He almost got bursted down. And then the channel went off, and then it healed him up. I think he still got out of the engagement. But it put him in one of the worst spots. It's just a very difficult position to be in. Sometimes Chronos ultimate giveth, and sometimes the rewind taketh away.
Keep me honest, Score, or maybe we'll talk about it after the team fight. Deathwalker stuck against the Fire Giant on a hard place here.
And a dash forward by Adapting in the jousting fields. Damage is there. But the Xing Jin looking for a little more. Fields of Love comes out, puts one on the board now for the Ravens. Trixtank is low, lurking in the waters can only get you so far. Leap in from Silence, but no follow-up. Ooh, barely. No, the burn is gonna kill Trixtank on the disengage. A nice 2-swing in favor of the Ravens. What can they do with this? Pyromancer is gonna be respawning soon while they have the numbers advantage. You gotta make something happen. Just off the mark is the CC from Zyrhoes. Between him and the damage from Echrome could have been big. Johnny Deep in the jungle, has Palau. No way he's going in for this one. Goes for the 1,000 cuts. He's finding a little bit of a slash. Looking for Kana. Goes deep up onto the Palau. One chain connects. That should be enough to find the pull, get the kill, and then they're going to turn another one with the help of Zyrhoes onto adapting a 2-man pickup like it's nothing for Hex Mambo. Now Zyrhoes just trying to stay alive. Rewind, puts him in a precarious spot. Is he going to go for a kill? Is he going to go for the fight? Is he going for the disengage? It looks like the runaway, and it's Chronos. And in the words of NRG, and specifically Inolito, he's a race car.
Yeah, that is the fastest OG god in Smite. Maybe not the fastest anymore, but still certainly enough to escape a Cupid. Zyrhoes walks up, hits the first ability onto Adapting. Polyproc, and Adapting said, I was full HP, and now I'm simply off the map. Highland Ravens find themselves in a precarious position of, hey, we just got 2 picks. Let's do something. There's nothing to do. They already took Pyro and Gold Fury. Let's reset. And weren't quite able to do that either, not with Dzoni on the hunt. Hex Mambo, even in their stumbles, look pretty decent here. 7,000 gold up now. 20 minutes in, Zyrhoes, even more penetration now with Charon's coin finished up. I'm thinking Fire Giant probably a pretty good call.
Could be pretty easy at this point. Yeah, the Charon's coin. I mean, this is the build we've been seeing every single time, right? The Thoth, the Warlocks, Poly, Charons. Like clockwork. And it always falls easily for Zyrhoes. Like you said, Fire Giant, I mean, 6,000 gold, 7,000 gold.
Force the fight.
Separating these teams, and if you're looking for someone who forces the fight, Hex Mambo in that conversation. Wild that the Dzoni just had a moment of, you killed my front line, now I'm going to kill you for a deep dive. All it takes is a little step out of position. Silence has to play carefully here, because that's all Hex Mambo will need to go for the fire.
Yeah, pluck onto even a tank at this point would be really detrimental for the Highland Ravens. Dzoni, in the inverse of what he had just forced onto the Ravens, caught at his own back camps, Adapting, forced to retreat. Palau used in trade as Zero takes a bit of damage towards mid, but the fight should end soon.
Zyrhoes pops the rewind. That's going to get him pretty far out of here. Silenced. Kana might get caught out on their own, though. This is a late-game Chronos, a late-game Echrome. That's going to be enough. They kill off Silenced now. The chase is on. Cthulhu trying to disengage, of all things. Adapting has to use the beads, or Angry has to use the beads, but I don't know that that's enough. The Aegis barely getting him away, but it's not far enough to escape Trixtank. A pluck connects, and Angry goes down. 2 kills for the Mambo, and a wide open Fire Giant.
Just not an advisable call for the Highland Ravens to walk into the back camps of Hex Mambo. If Dzoni's playing just about any other assassin, maybe it works a bit better, but because Palau removes you from the playfield, the strategy of we'll just catch him while he's not looking, CC him, hit him, and kill him before anyone can respond, doesn't work. Dzoni goes up into the Palau, buys time for his team to rotate in, and Adapting forced to retreat once more. A good blink secures his life, but not exactly how you'd like to use your blink, given the choice. Hex Mambo now with Fire Giant on all 5 and plenty of gold in their pockets. Reset, regroup, start the push. There's plenty of towers to collect gold from as well. And this is a composition from Hex Mambo that deals with towers very well. Chronos, even without Polynomicon, is the best god in the game at destroying structures. If you go into that auto attack stance, you're hitting these towers for like upwards of probably around 400 already. You got pretty decent attack speed too, and he actually does have poly. I don't imagine these structures stay up for too long. The Highland Ravens might just have to play around the Phoenix here.
It looks like Primal Fury will be the first call for Hex Mambo. I have to again, little moments, but just being able to hear the audio of Adapting dropping the red buff. And Zyrhoes, instead of running to the red buff and being like, oh, it did get dropped, it just goes to cut off the pathing to force that blink. I mean, little things like that can make such a huge difference. Kind of like plays like this. Coast Kana joining up with a minion wave on right, knock down a tier 1. Unfortunately for them, it's going to be met with a tier 2 on left. Echrome, Zyrhoes, Trixtank, 3 with Fire Giant. Sometimes that's all you need. Tier 2 and mid goes down with Deathwalker and Dzoni. A lot of ults, a lot of setup, a lot of capabilities for Hex Mambo if they want to knock on the door of the Phoenix. They got a minion wave as well, dueling dragons. Just off the mark. Great reaction from Echrome to dash. And that gets them out of that danger. Dzoni's looking for more. It's just the engage. How do you get in there? Beads are still down for Angry. Like you said earlier, Huang might be one of the more useless beats to pluck, considering what he's able to do and survive. We'll see if that even matters.
Yikes.
Kana dashes forward. Kana into Cxnnahh Madness is taking more damage than he's dealing here and has to turn back around. Silence, just as much trouble thrown their way. There's the powwow, not going to pull anybody in. Does not matter. They kill off a front line, TKO the other. This should be a free Phoenix for Hex Mambo.
Silence wasn't even allowed to channel the ultimate. Had he decided to transform in the backline, the entirety of Hex Mambo would have been given the opportunity to set up their DPS, and Silence wouldn't have survived that. I think the only way that Fafnir finds value if it's transformed, then jump in, but a telegraph would have allowed Hex Mambo to fully disengage. This Fafnir just not allowed to play his game. Left side bird goes down. Hex Mambo keeps up their siege. Right side tier 2. Quick to follow. It's a standard fire giant, so backdoor protections slowing him down a bit. I wonder, is that enough? You don't have your minion wave. It's already pushed up to your own tier 2 tower. And only about 50 seconds left on this fire giant.
Yeah.
Hex Mambo. They'll reset themselves, steal the enemy jungle, take the Pyromancer, head back to base, and see if maybe there's a couple more opportunities along the way. Otherwise, could be that we're looking at a small wait while the next fire giant spawns up.
There was a period right there where I thought they were going to dive into the mid Phoenix and go for that, despite not having the back door, because adapting was just running down mid. I mean, he backed between Hex Mambo's tier 1 and tier 2. I was wondering if that was going to be their go button once they saw him show up on a minion wave, but they played it slow. Strip away some of the jungle, as well as strip away the last of the towers. A lot of gold, you had mentioned it. Bancroft's Talon full bot just now for Zyrhoes. With the upgraded starters as well, or in the case of Echrome, selling that for a dominance. Wards are on their way. They got 55 seconds to set up for a fire giant. Mifflin, they've also got 15,000 gold in their favor over what Highland Ravens have been able to pick up.
I've said in the past 99%er, 95%er, 99.9%er. I'm going to pull back the curtain here a little bit, remove some intrigue. This is looking like a 99.99%er for Hex Mambo. It is slim odds for the Highland Ravens, because the strongest portions of their composition, being that Cthulhu in the late game, I think have really revealed themselves to be not that strong up against Hex Mambo. I mean, nothing's going to be this far down, but if your Cthulhu isn't allowed to W key when he ults, what'd you pick him for?
Well, Kana is going to try W keying, immediately taken down to half health. Same thing for Silence. Meanwhile, Zyrhoes and Echrome are untouched, but adapting gets back there. Good Aegis from Echrome. The autos are there, but they need a little bit of help to work with them here. And
Zyrhoes
the team
back.
is too separated. Finally, though, Zyrhoes able to find one. There's the knock up, the control. Kana forced to run from his team. Zyrhoes is on a warpath, wants to take down Adapting. Kana is low, Adapting is low, Angry is dead, and with 3 down, one of those for a full minute, you have to imagine Hex Mambo can end the game right here and take game 1 of the set.
Yeah, the only reason that dive works for the Highland Ravens is because Zyrhoes was distracted trying to deal with literally anybody else, was chasing down the ADC and support of the Highland Ravens. The second that Chronos got involved in the backline, the fight turns around completely. I'm not certain that Zyrhoes used either of his relics this game. Alternate timeline goes unused. Mans was never under threat, and if that's something you could say about a Chronos, it could be Zyrhoes or it could be Joe Schmo from down the block. You gotta get on him or he's gonna win you the game.
I mean, there were several moments there, even at the end, where it's like, oh, I feel like the carries are under, it was just Echrome. It wasn't the carries, it was Echrome under pressure. Zyrhoes just happened to be standing nearby and did not seem to blink an eye, bat an eye at it. The rewind was used perfectly every time. Like you said, he just coasted along. I mean, his relics hanging out.
Coasted.
Well, at least not this time around. The Ravens fall down 1-0. Hex Mambo looking really good in game number 1, but Mifflin not without struggles on the way to the end there, right? For the first 10, 12 minutes or so.
They had to play him. They were up the whole time. It was 0-0, up 2K.
Yeah, they did get a lot of money for free, it felt like. Hex Mambo play that game the same way that we see him play every game, with an advantage and strong. So we'll see if they can keep this up, or the Ravens have an answer back right after this.
it true? You actually think of me as less than you. Just wish that I knew how something like that could happen. Maybe it's just in passing, 'cause nothing is everlasting, no. But like really though, how do you know that I can overcome all of the obstacles? She just looked me in the eye, said it's gonna be alright, 'cause I know that's how it goes. The only thing we know is that we change. Nothing's ever gonna stay the same forever. Forever. No, it won't, 'cause no one ever does. You just have to learn and learn to trust whenever. Whenever. As blue as the sky above you. It's true that it won't end this way. If you lose and get sad about it, just know it's gonna go away. It doesn't make sense that somebody else got all of the praise when you did the same thing. It doesn't feel real when they all say it's the same rules when
Well, game number 1 goes over to Hex Mambo, the number 1 seed, with a pretty decisive game at that. One thing that you probably want to make a decision on now before you might not have a chance to before the SWC comes up is picking up one of our jerseys brought to us by our friends over at Skulls. If you have not picked up a Pro League jersey for one of your favorite teams out there, go ahead and do that now. The holiday seasons are coming up. It's getting so close to the SWC. In fact, we are 33 days away from the Smite World Championship. That's not a whole lot of time to pick up a jersey, but because it's also the winter season right now, at least for us in the northern hemisphere, it's getting a little bit chilly outside. So you might want to pick up a hoodie that we also have provided to us by Skulls, one for all of your favorite teams out there. So pick up a jersey, pick up a hoodie over at shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL and pick those up now. Thank you so much to Skulls for providing not just jerseys, but also some nice and cozy hoodies for us in the Smite Pro League and for the fans at home. But game number 1, Charlie, I'm gonna pull a saying that you said before, which is it's hard to win a game when you can't kill the carries.
Yeah.
And Dzoni and Zyrhoes go undying this game in situations that both of them probably should have died multiple times.
Yeah, I think that Dzoni and Trix in particular were going so hard at the back line that it was very difficult to even get to Zyrhoes, right? This Chronos has rewind, has pretty much both relics up throughout the entirety of the game, and then later on even had alternate timelines. So trying to go through all of that just became extremely difficult. I don't think the Ravens really had a leg to stand on in this game. It started off slow, as you would imagine, but even when there was no kills, Hex Mambo were pouring ahead farm-wise, as you would imagine. They always had that gold lead that they could just lean back on. So I think a situation where you need to somehow limit the amount of die that Hex Mambo has, whether that be through banning out a little bit more of Dzoni or banning out a little bit more of Trixtank, could be the call. But they were just W-king. I mean, it just didn't seem like they had a fear in the world here for Hex Mambo.
Nah, Trixtank on this Sobek definitely setting up a lot for his team. The flip backs, at least with those plucks, able to set up his carries for being able to get some of those big kills. Zyrhoes in multiple situations where you look up. I mean, the one highlight that we had where he was able to get a kill onto adapting by jumping up with Dzoni. After that kill, he was surrounded by 3 people. There was the dual lane and the mid laner there to try and shut him down. He presses the 4 button, rewinds, gets his HP all back, and then just presses 2 and zooms his way out of the fight.
Turns out Chronos is pretty fast.
Really, really fast,
Yeah.
I would see, because nobody was able to catch him this time. 3-0-3 for Zyrhoes, 5-0-3 for Dzoni on the dodge. Echrome taking the top damage, nearly 24k for himself, just one little damage point off of there. And kind of being the late game carry that his team needed, helped him transition through the early game. And it's kind of that consistency we talk about with Hex Mambo's dual lane is Echrome is one of those players that you can give him just about any hunter, put him up against just about any player, And you don't got to worry about him. He's not going to be the one who's going like 0-4 in matchups over there. He might go 0-0 all the way through, but he's always consistent to make sure that he is not losing his lane. Maybe not winning necessarily, but at least he's not losing out on his opposition.
Yeah, I think, once again, Echrome, not really where you want to focus your bans either. It's the dive of Hex Mambo that's so deadly, so I wouldn't be surprised in picks and bans if Trix, Dzoni, or even Deathwalker get targeted out a little bit more.
Yeah, we did see Deathwalker get targeted a bit in Game 1 picks and bans. We'll see if there's some prioritization maybe towards limiting Dzoni a little bit more here in Game number 2. The Dodgy gets let through. The first time that Dzoni got his hands on Dodgy, didn't look so great, wasn't so hot for Hex Mambo. This time, though, complete flip of the script, 5-0-3 from Game number 1. We'll see if the Dodgy even makes it through the picks and bans this time around. With Mambo in second pick this time, maybe we will see a ban go that way. It's still going to be Tyr and Ymir for the Ravens. Thor and Set continue for Hex Mambo. One more ban apiece for each of those ones there. Typically, it's been the Amaterasu ban.
Yep.
But the Ravens aren't going to do that. They're going to go with Chronos to target out Zyrhoes and get him off this hyper carry.
Yeah, the Chronos is something that I assumed would be banned in Game number 1, but I guess wanted to see if they could beat it. They couldn't, and now it'll be taken away. And while doing so, they have the opportunity to grab the Dodgy for themselves, so adapting can play that pick and have to put Dzoni onto something else. But of course, doing that means that Deathwalker gets his Amaterasu back, and it looks like Trix is going to grab the Fafnir. Another pick that can dive very deep, has a lot of safety with that Draconic Transformation, just essentially resetting his cooldowns and also giving him just, you know, extra mana, that sort of thing. So, not looking too great dive-wise, but I think just getting that Dodgy does open up a lot more doors here for the Highland Ravens, and Coast has been playing Cupid pretty much for every game, so we don't even have to talk about that.
Yeah, the Cupid's just going to maybe act there as a solo agent to be able to take some of these beats away, maybe from the carry that they has to play up against, maybe someone over in towards the mid if they can make a rotation over there, maybe try and give this Dodgy a little bit of assistance on being able to pull some of these targets in with Pal Lao. But Hades rounds out the top 3 for the Ravens, and Mercury for Hex Mambo, and Dzoni is still one of the only players going with this Mercury, and he's not typically one of those players who is sitting there farming back, waiting for the first couple of, first 12 or so levels to go through before he gets active. Dzoni is, I'm level 2, I've got dash, I've got my punch. Let's dive in there.
Yeah, I don't even need crits online. I'm going to be going for those plays, but I expect to see some ults from the Mercury for sure. Maybe over towards duo lane, just trying to focus out VaporishCoast, get those beats down. That is what Mercury does best, and the Scylla here, that is an interesting one. I mean, the way that Zyrhoes has been playing so far, it's not like Scylla's that far out of the god pool that I would imagine, but still, there's not crazy amounts of setup early, especially if Dzoni's not sitting around mid lane, but if you're playing for late, that still's going to absolutely pop off. We've seen those item monsters carry some of these games throughout this tournament.
Speaking of playing late, Angry on the Tiamat. Going to take a little bit of time before we see this mage really start to get up and active. Xing Chen rounds out the top 5 now for the Highland Ravens, and feels like this Xing Chen might be making its way over towards the support role with that Hades locked in earlier on. Hex Mambo hovering their last pick, and this is normally the pick that we're seeing literally on the opposite corner of the picks and bans. Usually it's in like that top 1 or top 2 for some of these teams, but a 10th pick Heimdallr. How do you kind of feel about him right now? Because it feels like he's kind of just been brushed under the rug by every team.
Yeah, I think Heimdallr's still good. I mean, at this point, it's like if you're able to be safe and clear the wave, Heimdallr's always going to be a decent option here. So if you're just going for safety and you're going for late game, which I imagine that's the call you for Echrome, I'll never complain about it, Heimdallr.
Well, we'll see if we make it to the late game, where this is going to be another 30-minute or lesser from these two teams. We'll see who comes out on top in game number 2 with Gore and Mifflin.
Hex Mambo 1 win away from qualifying to the SWC group stages, being the champion here in the EUSCC, Europe's first seed after a long phase 3 and then into a long competitive week. The Ravens, though, Mifflin, going to do their best to extend this one as far as they can. But Deathwalker's on Ama, Dzoni's on the Mercury. It feels like you get quite a few signature quote-unquote picks for Hex Mambo.
I like Highland's Ravens drafts.
Yeah.
Just way more.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm being honest, the only thing I don't love is Tiamat, but Angry's gonna play Tiamat. That's just a truth. A primordial truth of this player is that so long as that god is in the game, he'll be going towards it. Otherwise, I love the late game of the Highland Ravens draft. I feel like the early game they've got advantage because of the Mercury on the other side being so slanted towards the late. Coast and Silence found themselves a pretty heavy kill lane. Kana won't struggle against Amaterasu. unless he gets ganked here. Dzoni considering it. Hovering near that Totem of Coup. Leap should be available. If he jumps on wave, could cost him his life. I don't know. He's got me a bit nervous, but he's playing safe.
Dzoni doesn't necessarily have a lot going for him. Still forces the beads, though. Mercury, early on, not known for absolutely insane ganks. We'll get to see, though, if the Hades gets to survive and kind of live up to the expectations I have for Hades this year.
In situations like Cxnnahh just found himself in, hold onto your leap for as long as possible.
Yeah.
If you get tossed back by Dzoni and hold your beads and you still have leap, you could leap away and you're not taking the DPS from Mercury. But because he had leapt first, Dzoni throws out the dash, says, I connected. You don't have any way to escape afterward now, so you're forced to use your defensive relic. We saw a little bit more, I suppose, composure from Cxnnahh there. Likely he would have held on to his beads. Instead, a decent rotation for Dzoni might create some opportunities going forward.
Could just show face over there again. In fact, looks like he's about to. Hades up at the halfway mark. Gonna watch for where the dash is and or could be. It's used immediately, silenced afterward, and then a good pickup by Dzoni. Couple of hits, and this should be all she wrote. Dzoni takes him down, gets first blood.
That's probably why you wanted to hold the beads a little bit earlier, right? That's an easy rotation for Dzoni now. And he's got plenty of opportunity to continue to do so, and it's an unfortunate circumstance that Cxnnah finds him in. Itemizes for defense with the relics. Beads in first slot as opposed to the teleport. Falls down early regardless, and now misses out on probably at least 3 minions to the tower, potentially more. Surprised to see this, though, from Hex Mambo. It's not a blue buff invade. Oh, maybe I'm mistaken. This wasn't updated on the map just yet. They've taken it away, it would seem. Or Cxnnah just like one-shot it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely one. I'd have to go back. I'll be honest. I wasn't watching where adapting was during all that,
Did
so I wouldn't be
adapting do it?
surprised if adapting maybe rotated in, secured it. Maybe they got it prior. Who knows? Who cares? He got the blue buff. That's where he can be happy. Sometimes you need small wins like that, Mifflin, where at least it's going to go your way, especially when you get first blooded.
Small win, I got my blue.
Yeah. Oh, look, hey, he got his beads burned, he got first blooded.
Yeah, he got burned.
It is a small win, but it is a win nonetheless. He got
a
his
moral
blue buff.
victory for Cxnnah over in the solo lane. Perhaps one for adapting. Better for him having the opportunity to solo out that blue buff. Echrome doesn't have a great teleport here. He made it all of 10 units. Is the damage enough from Coast? It would seem not.
What?
Instead, Echrome turns on his heel, indicates to the Highland Ravens that perhaps there's some assistance on the way in. Trixtank rounds the corner. Dzoni had access to the ultimate, does not decide to move in towards the duo lane there. VaporishCoast still not 5. Could have been an opportunity for Dzoni, but instead finished up that golden blade. He wants to farm on map.
Yeah, and honestly can't get too beyond that call, right? Just when you look at it, it's a late game hyper carry. Granted, with the golden bow, like you said, the ult, probably could have been enough there, but Echrome was low.
Your age is showing, Gore.
Why?
It's golden blade nowadays.
Oh
bud.
no, I said golden bow, didn't I?
You're an OG.
Yowzers.
Old head, man.
Next I'm going to start talking about Hasten Fatalis or something. We're
Y'all remember Silver Fox Girdle?
Is that really what it was called?
I don't remember.
Oh, I just remember, like, you said girdle, and I was like, I can tell you girdle.
Silver Fox Talisman?
Oh, I do. Okay, yeah, Silver Fox Talisman.
Was
I
it
remember.
Talisman?
I do remember a talisman being, I believe, a Silver Fox Talisman.
Yeah, why not? Only Silver Fox I know about is RDJ.
Oh, wait, well, I was gonna say I'm getting old, but I'm like 29, so
Yeah, you're not allowed to say you're getting
I got
old.
plenty of time before I can try to force myself onto a list for you. Either way, blue buff stolen, taken down from Cxnnah. Not gonna be able to get that. Trixtank kind of fighting on his own.
Yeah, he had 6 minion homies locking
Well,
him
okay,
down.
he had some help.
Yeah, Coast wasn't just getting soloed by, well, I guess technically was. Coast took a lot of damage there from just a Fafnir. He's got sustain, you know, hasn't backed to base yet.
Echrome was like
still there.
almost full health, half mana, and backing 30 feet back from them.
And Trix was like, I gotta pad my damage. I gotta look good in the post-game stats.
And he's doing it. Look at him, number 4 on the list right now.
That's all on to VaporishCoast.
That might be. We're going to talk about this, but
Ooh.
It's that amount of damage in 6 minutes. He's only going to get a little more throughout the rest of the game. Fields of Love gets a double mez there. Could find a little more. Palau comes out. One chain connects. Beads used by Echrome. Transform used by Trixtank. Johnny has a Minotaur chasing him, but doesn't seem to be anything else from the Ravens to try and pick up a kill.
No, that should spell the end of it. I love that ultimate from Coast. Really well placed. Applies the damage, but nobody in range to follow up as Deathwalker may have been walking to a gank, decides to turn around, and Adapting likely to not chase out there. Afterward, Adapting's ultimate too, just really clean. Need to make some rotations over towards the dual lane to make it happen though. Johnny first in the scene.
Yeah, he steps up. Silence has to go down here. It might be Coast as well. No ult for Johnny since he used it to engage. So the chase down onto Coast maybe a little more difficult. Doesn't seem like that's stopping Trixtank from just letting his presence be known. Forcing Coast all the way back to the tier 2 line. But it's a second kill. And Mifflin for the second time after 2 kills, 2,000 gold in favor of Hex Mambo.
What a frustrating pace to that gank on dual lane as well. That's the first fight that had kind of gone Highland Ravens' way. Adapting forcing the beads off of Echrome, gets the ultimate from Trixtank, and Johnny says, "That's cool, you burned beads, Adapting? I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna straight up put them under 6 feet. They're pushing up daisies." And that's simply the case. Adapting still has the opportunity to rotate back through, though. Echrome access the ultimate, make it a little bit harder to find value from Palau, but if you can maybe get over to Trixtank before that ultimate comes back up, that pull would work.
Johnny, nice little dash. Gets the exact amount of space necessary to get not only under the tier 1, but to really separate the Ravens from a fight they were looking for. Mifflin, the main difference I'm noticing for this game is just the faster escalation for Hex Mambo. I mean, last time we were talking 2,000 gold at 13 minutes. Now we're approaching 3,000 at 8 minutes. And the kills going the way they have. Bead's about to be up for everybody that maybe needs them. Echrome, 40 seconds left, so might have to play patiently. But they're kind of rocking the show right now.
They've been rocking the whole week, Gore. This is the Hex Mambo EU SCC Championship any % speed run right now. I mean, the first set was combined 20 minutes game time, just about.
We'll see what they can do over here. Trixtank takes a little bit of damage. Then a deep dive from Johnny the Palau. Where are you going to go if you're adapting here? Not even going to need to use the beats. Uses them anyway
right
if
now?
you're Johnny, just to get aggressive, just to get the kill. And it's going to be 2 online in this fight for the jungler. 3 total. The chase is still on. Silence trying to run away just to jump in. I'm a monster. Just a little short for the damage. Silence is still low. There's the hit. They just get too much. And what are you going to do when Hex Mambo's playing like that?
Oh, brother. Hex Mambo are just doing anything they want wherever they want. Just fights everywhere. They're playing around Mercury's early game. Who does that? I don't know. Johnny, I guess. Just getting active on map, adapting now. Seems to be a bit off kilter, landing directly down after the Palau. Johnny's like, oh, word. That's awesome. You are within range of my fist, it would seem. And just takes him out. Zyrhoes as well, perfectly places all of his abilities. Trixtank CC didn't miss a single bit of it. And Fafnir is like real hard to hit everything on, by the way. I mean, the guys in the SPL are hitting like maybe 1 and 2 hammers. That was 3 total hammers from Trixtank. Every single one connects. Finds the stun on the leap, immediately on D-transform, hammers again through a wall. There was no escape for the Highland Ravens, and Hex Mambo, this lead's getting out of control.
Yeah, just insane what they were able to do. 4,000 gold, just a little shy, 3,800 is where they're hovering at right now. You have to imagine, I mean, there's been no Gold Furies. There's been no Pyromances. That is just farm, just kills, just steals.
Reason.
And man, the Ravens are going to have some tough times trying to fight back into this one. 2-level lead in the jungle, 2 level for support, 2 levels for the carry.
Yeesh.
Angry and a little bit of trouble. Clap from Johnny made me think he was going to go back in, but no. It's a patient game. Silenced, I just saw the CC chain you got hit with. I don't know if you want to be the one stepping forward here. Tanky. The question's going to be tanky enough. Shadow Steel picked up early for Johnny, as opposed to like a Rage where we normally see it. He wants that crit and he wants it fast. They're going to go for the Pyromancer pull. Kana, Silence, rotate in. They're not going to have anything to say about this one, though. Silence gets hammered. Maybe bringing up some PTSD for him. So now it's Kana trying to get away. Blue buff. I mean, at this point, just forfeit.
This is toxic. Dude.
Lives might be forfeit if they try to fight here. It's the most awkward position to be in. Adapting, stunned out. Sick 'em good. Palau is going to get a chain onto one. Dzoni just going to dodge that one out with the ultimate. Now maybe look for a little bit more. CC immunity from Zyrhoes. They're going to pick him up. Throw the wrong way. Dzoni, where are you going, man?
Into the wall.
Into
That's
the
standard.
Wall. Okay, so Zyrhoes may be the one who's off the mark that time. Does not seem to matter. They still kill Silence.
Well, hold on,
and they're
hold on,
still
hold on.
wanting more, but they finally get rid of Dzoni. They're looking to burn down Deathwalker. It's 2 kills for the Ravens. Trixtank has to get out of here. That disengage is not as clean from Hex Mambo as the start to that fight.
Yeah, I mean, a 4-man leap and a 4-man devour souls from Kana, I think the difference maker on that one. But when you evaluate the heat map of where Hex Mambo was maneuvering, it was, we're walking at Pyro, we took Pyro, we walked at your blue, we took your blue, we walked at Greater Scorpion, we took your lives. And Highland Ravens, like the Red Sea, just part around Hex Mambo everywhere they had walked, until eventually they say, hold on, you can't just walk into my tier 1 tower, not 12 minutes in. And the Highland Ravens have a bit of fight back there thanks to a phenomenal rotation from Kana.
Man.
But it still is just... Has it even dented the charts, Doug? Can we get a look at the charts here? Has it gone... It went up a little bit.
Yeah, they made up the Pyro.
Experience is good. Experience
right.
is way better now. Oh, it went right back down.
Well, it made up the Pyromancer.
It made up the Pyro.
So I'm going to stick with that. It made up for the Pyromancer. Echrome. Just going to knock Silenced out of there. The knockout, the tower shot?
The boys are here.
With Zyrhoes? With Dzoni?
Don't walk that way.
Oh no, Silence, there's nowhere you can go that feels safe. And I'd say you came to the wrong neighborhood, but it feels like the whole map is the neighborhood and Hex Mambo are running it.
Now Oracle's potentially a Gold Fury. Take
It's got to
that back.
be a Fury,
No,
right?
Johnny's left. He's got waves in mid to clear. They're gonna do it without him. The crit auto attack guy. You don't want him for the Gold Fury?
Who needs him?
Nobody. It was legitimately superfluous. Shame on me for thinking, even for a moment, that it would be required of your jungler to be there. Gold Fury does go to Hex Mambo as well. Dzoni just solos out a bit of that mid farm, pushing himself even further in the lead. Won't be Rage or any crit in the next slot, though. Katana instead. I wonder which one he goes for. They're all pretty good, but this early, for some reason, I don't think it's a serrated, even though generally it is. Maybe a stone cutting? Could be fun. A little 50 power infusion, movement speed, penetration.
Movement speed always does feel nice on Mercury.
Yeah, all those katanas were essentially built for Mercury.
Which is wild. He only has 2 hands, and I've never seen someone carry 4 katanas. I don't think I've ever, outside of Leonardo from the Ninja Turtles.
Or like...
Who uses 2 katanas at once?
Who uses 2 at once? So
Yeah.
many people.
Really?
The most famous samurai of all time, Musashi.
Really?
Yeah, he used 2.
That's impressive. I
Yeah,
gotta look
Zoro-
this up more.
Yeah, Zoro had 3, you know?
I thought the whole thing was that it was like, I
Yeah,
don't know, you have to
two-handed,
have the
that's
two-handed.
Kendo. That's
Oh,
that's
maybe
like a
that's
sport.
what it is, just because I've seen Kendo.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of anime, so that's my excuse for that one.
I've seen so much.
Anime or Kendo?
That's right.
I almost wanted to ask you about sumo, but I feel like we should stay at
I've
least a
also
little
watched
on
that.
track. Sumo's very fun to watch. Almost as fun to watch as Hex Mambo. Just in general, 5,000. If they get their way, it's 5,500. Yeah, 5,600. They can push this even further. 6,000 experience. 3 levels in the jungle right now, Mifflin. 3 levels for the carries. Deathwalker, with no care about anything Kana has in his arsenal. And Silenced in an unfortunate position where he is just not tanky enough to withstand the onslaught of anyone from Hex Mambo.
Yeah, almost at this point, I'm feeling like Trixtank might be a threat. Like, he's the same level as Vaporish on the other side, and we saw him soloing him at, like, level 4, so maybe a bit more. Deathwalker just decides to try and steal the blue while simultaneously taking the fight up against 2. Maybe learns... No, he can't live. Adapting. Don't let it happen.
Blink,
Come on, get in
dash,
there.
Kana,
Yep.
blink from adapting. That'll be enough. They're not going to find anything else, but at least they kill what was an egregious play from Deathwalker. Walks in, 2v1. Lasts way longer than maybe should have. 3 for the Ravens now, 8 for the Mambo. 6,000 gold. Well, no, still sitting at that 5,500 mark. Some of these deaths are actually, well, I mean, they're naturally detrimental to Hex Mambo. We're only 16 minutes in. And Mambo on pace, honestly, to the point where my brain was thinking that we need to see a Fire Giant soon.
A jump forward from Cxnnahh there. That's all of his burst. Dzoni not going to stick it. And it wasn't stone cutting, by the way. It was serrated edge for the Mercury. While we saw the small trade on right, Deathwalker, a bit of an egotistical play around that blue buff. Instead, it was a fight on left that went Dzoni's way. And a counter rotation now. Cxnnahh feeling himself after that pick onto Deathwalker. Steps up, loses his life to the three-man stack of Hex Mambo just as the Pyromancer and Fire Giant become available. And that's the difference. Hex Mambo, they make rotations when it's time. It is time for the Pyro. iSilenced nearby could keep it interesting.
And Deathwalker creates an interesting position. Where was that I'm a Monster just thrown? Hex Mambo, maybe it doesn't matter, still secure themselves the objective. Deathwalker dives the tower, goes for adapting. Chains are juked out one, juked out two.
Not the king. He's just going to auto
and he's
wave.
just not going to go for three, and instead it's going to be a jump in from Dzoni. Dzoni doesn't have a lot of mana, but he still grabs him, hits the auto, and they're running circles around the king.
Any Halo players or fighting game players, whatever Deathwalker just did, that's the Smite equivalent of teabagging, man. I mean, that was awful. Just walks in a circle around the powwow, said, you whiffed two, I'm going to clear the wave, all right? Give up. And adapting said, you right, bro, and gets off the powwow. What is going on? Hex Mambo just styling on the opposition, man. This is brutal.
Only lost one game so far of the tournament. And like you said, it was kind of a blitzkrieg. Ran it down, took them out before their comp could come online. Something I remember talking with Chelly when it was happening, where he was just like, yeah, this just doesn't feel like a Hex Mambo draft. They had nothing but passive gods waiting for late game. Meanwhile, you get this. This is the alternative. 6-1-4 for Dzoni. Combined 4-0-9 for the duo lane. So Hex Mambo feeling really good, 10 kills to 3. And Mifflin, I'll be honest, the thing that surprised me the most this game, outside of maybe that last play, was
this fire call?
Well, it was going to be the fact that Hex Mambo hadn't
hold on, they don't know.
But it's going to be now that Hex Mambo, and specifically that the Ravens have started this up, they have to be able to spot this out. That Fire Giant is not getting burned whatsoever.
Adapting's level 14.
And yeah, Dzoni walks over there. 4-level difference between him and the opposing jungler. Might even look for some poke stops the back on Cxnnahh.
Okay.
He's not going to bully him too hard.
And on the other side of the map, an objective pulled as well. This one going a bit easier and quicker. Hex Mambo take the Oni Fury, spawn up some enhanced minion waves. Trebuchet taking down the tower on its own. Maybe Angry can prevent this from going down. And Hex Mambo's lead extends once more. Coast, Deathwalker on tours, come over. There's the dash. There goes the life as well. Echrome puts him down.
Echrome has gotten Coast within, you know, like 1/6 of his HP bar every time.
What happened to Dzoni?
But unable to kill him. Finally gets a little bit of assistance, kills him off. Yeah, Dzoni almost killed off. But almost isn't good enough here. He walls back, he clears up some camps, farms, and is on pace to try and reach level 20. 19.5 minutes in. Silenced picks up 2, throws 2. And Mifflin, I don't think I've ever seen Hex Mambo care less about an ultimate being thrown their way than they do right now. Until maybe this powwow chains connect onto Echrome and onto Deathwalker. They're going to let it pull them. I'm a Monster misses. This could be an opening for adapting, but instead it's a 4v1 for Hex Mambo without a Fire Giant buff. They are walking into the left side Phoenix. They have a 2-man advantage, and they're looking to burn this bird like it's nothing at 20 minutes. No FG, looking for even more. They kill Cxnnahh. They're going to kill Coast. They might just end the game right here and right now. Feels dangerous, so they are going to back off. Low health bars to warrant some caution. Maybe the most sensible call that Hex Mambo has made in the last 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes.
I mean, if it works, it's sensible in my mind, right? And
it's been working.
Has only worked so far for Hex Mambo. The only thing Perhaps egregious was Deathwalker dying on the blue buff, but all is forgiven when your team is this
What was
far
more
ahead.
egregious was him. He's just like circle straight from the powwow.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh man,
That's egregious in a different way.
that's tough, dude. That is absolutely tough. Well, I'm thinking Hex Mambo might be in a decent position, and if I'm out of pocket, Gore, you stop me at any point. Might be in a winning position. Probably look at the Fire Giant here. Maybe just walk into the Titan room. I don't know.
Maybe just win, actually. Yeah, no, what is this? I mean, 15, it's 16,000 gold almost.
21 minutes in? No, you got it.
21
bad
minutes in.
math.
They
Gotta
have
be.
not picked up an FG, and it looks like they don't care to. They are going on silence, and he's just dead. Adapting, grabbed in a buff, killed off, double kill for Johnny. 8, 1, and 4 on the Mercury.
Bro, Johnny kind of looking like A-Train out there, just turning people into mist. That's crazy.
That's a sick reference. Oh my god, maybe the best way to describe it.
You think
Oh, they
Kana makes it
finally-
out or what?
No, I don't think he does. Mifflin, you know what? I think I can remember where this game started to go downhill. You remember that time that Kana had his beads burned after the dash
Yeah,
at the very
yeah,
beginning? It
that
feels
was
like
it.
nothing has gone right since then for the Ravens. Fire Giant picked up for all 5 on Mambo. 9, 1, and 4 with 2 still dead on the Ravens. 18 kills to 3.
Think he makes it out of there?
They're going to make it 19. And then kill off the Titan. Hex Mambo are going to the SWC group stages, and they're going in style.
Angry leaps forward. No,
It's
yeah,
over.
all right. You want me to do like some... I gotta want it because I can't do it. There's nothing to talk about. Hex Mambo have simply dominated it. And look, 2 more. Look, we missed out on 2 kills.
We missed out on
could've
2
called.
total kills. You're right, that's on me.
Yeah, there were 22 of them in as many minutes, so I think it's okay if we miss just.
No, that's on
2
me.
of them.
That's a failure on my part.
I don't think so. No, you did great, Gore.
Thanks, man.
You know, actually, earlier this
You
week.
know who else did great? All of Hex Mambo.
Yeah, Hex Mambo did great. Earlier this week, David asked me, is the disparity between 1 and 2 greater than the disparity between 2 and 3 in the USCC? Yeah.
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 Also, like that you called him David. It's not
Yeah.
often that if he was listening right now,
Don't call me David.
he's well. Not only that, but he's also like feeling weird about it. He's like, why are you calling me David? Like that's Dolson for those of
Yep.
you out there. Hex Mambo, you had just said it. Style on them. I don't even know if there's any other words for it. Good luck to the desk breaking this one down. Hex Mambo win it, and they win it in 2.
Yeah, I got the breakdown. So, Charlie, remember back in the pregame I said, Johnny's a player who whenever he hits level 2 and he has dash and punch,
Yeah.
he gets active.
Yeah.
Well, he did just that. He got dash and he got punch. And then from that point, it's just Johnny running across the map doing just those 2 things to Highland Ravens. 22 minutes of play. Hex Mambo are able to close out game number 2, take a 2-0, and be the first team to qualify to the SWC group stages for the EUC. And that means for at least the Highland Ravens, they're going to have to play a little bit longer up against the Art of Scorpions to see if they can make it through. But game 2 was just a steamroll, I think is the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, there's not a lot to pull from that one that I think the Ravens did well. Unfortunately, I like their draft, but was not able to execute. Getting Johnny off to an early lead is never a good thing, especially on Mercury, because you see stuff like this happen where it's just double sonic boom across from the tower, and it did not stop there. You're going to see a lot of Johnny highlights because he was a part of pretty much every kill in the early, the first 9, 100%, and I think he continued that trend, as well as Echrome also popped off on the Heimdallr. Unfortunately for Zyrhoes, got a lot of assists this game, was never getting those last hits because the rest of his team was just doing a little bit too much. And so short as well, 22 minutes. It is very difficult to end a game of competitive Smite in 22 minutes. I mean, it is you have to be absolutely dominating everywhere, and Hex Mambo was.
Especially with the TTK changes that came partway through the year, made it even harder to end by there because structures have more HP, everything's just a little bit tankier, Titan has more health to it. But at the end of the day, for Hex Mambo, it didn't matter how much extra HP. That just meant, okay, well, we'll focus like an extra 2 to 3 seconds on these structures. We'll focus an extra 2 to 3 seconds on the Titan. Oh, we'll farm a couple of extra kills while we're there. But at the end of the day here, for a Hex Mambo, 11-1-5 for Johnny, 7-0-11 for Echrome, as you said, Zyrhoes.
Support
Poor
Scylla
guy.
game.
Able to get a nice support slash line. Even his support actually getting more kills and assists than Zyrhoes in that one.
I wish Trix did more damage, then we actually could have said support
He
Scylla
almost did.
Yep.
He was only like 2,500 behind Zyrhoes, which is no easy feat for a Fafnir to get that much damage comparatively to your mid lane Scylla. And we look back like literally a set ago where Gunter was popping off on a pick like this one, nearly topping the charts in that regard. But Hex Mambo, they said, you know what? Game 3s just aren't cool anymore, man. We don't like having to go to Game 3. And they decided they're getting into 2.
Yeah, they wanted to stamp their ticket to group stage, and they were able to do that now. Unfortunately for the Ravens, they got one more shot, right?
Yeah.
They've got one more chance to try and stamp their ticket. Where Hex Mambo, they said, we're not going to leave this one up to anyone. We're going to make sure we're not going to 3, and we're ending as quickly as possible.
So with that one, Hex Mambo do qualify to the SWC group stage. And as mentioned, the Highland Ravens have got to battle one more time. Our third and final set of the day, our 15th set of the weekend, all ends with the Highland Ravens and Aru Scorpions. One of these two teams will join Hex Mambo in going to the SWC group stage in January. The other one, their Season 9 competitive career ends here on that set. One final best of 3 to decide who will be our second EU representative for the SCC to join the SPL teams, and then next week we'll get to see which NA teams from the SAC will be able to jump up in towards there. And I'm a little bit excited for this one. You know, we were kind of talking about the gap between, 1 and 2, and then the gap between 2 and 3, or, even 2 in the rest of the league out there. It's been a little shaky for Highland Ravens. I believe Niflheim Warg's able to take them to a full 3-game set over to their Aru Scorpions, able to kind of convincingly take down the Wargs. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this one go to 3, Trelly.
I wouldn't either, and I think all because of this game here, right? Like the Highland Ravens, you got to remember, are coming off of a deep loss. They got to have a short memory. They got to get Hex Mambo out of your mind because they are no longer your opponents. You have to worry about the Aru Scorpions, and I'm hoping we get to see it competitive. But I think you're right to highlight the fact that with everything that we've seen so far this week, this set could be an absolute banger, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, this set could go either way, in all honesty. I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe saw an upset from the Scorpions, or we see the Highland Ravens kick it back into high gear. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back with our final set of the SCC Championships right after this.